So we are constantly empathizing with our surroundings, and the information that we're getting, it's very carefully designed to create very specific set of emotions. How are you expecting your machine to function in health if everything you're putting into it is sickness?
Hello, you beautiful bluebirds, and welcome back to another episode of Deja Blue. It is your girl Blue here, and I am sitting with a familiar guest from season 1. If you have tuned into the podcast for the full experience, the full journey, then you will know this guest. And if you haven't, my recommendation would be go back to season 1 and revisit the Yoniverse. The episode called The Yoniverse with Layla El Khadri, who dialed in with us a powerful transmission about the power of the yoni and how to resource our power from our lady parts. She's probably said it in a little bit more of an eloquent way than that, but that was pretty much the gist of it. So if you want to continue with what we picked up on that first episode, Laila, you've been saying to me that since that episode, I mean, we're like a year later, you're still getting people circling back from that episode. So it was extremely powerful. But before we go into hearing from you, I just want to give you a formal introduction. So this woman has graced my life in more ways than one. I connected deeply with her at a retreat in Bali, which was a female empowerment retreat, and the exercises and the guidance and just everything that was cultivated within that space just lingered within me and has become the fabric of my empowerment even years later. So the wisdom that spills out from this woman and that she has devoted her life into mastering is very potent. And what it does is it gives the power back to us, specifically as women and generally just across the board for men and women and everything in between, to source our own power and have the power back within our own being. And so Laila is a female leadership expert, a feminine leadership expert, my bad, a feminine leadership expert. And what she does is she basically works with women one-on-one and in group containers to be able to find the source of our personal power and to create a large impact from that place. And so this is just such powerful work behind the scenes, behind the labels, behind the definition of what this is. Ultimately, this work is restoring the balance of the masculine and feminine principles on the planet, which is allowing us to actually thrive from a more creative, nourishing, compassionate place within men and within women. So this work is so powerful. I can't emphasize it enough. And simultaneously, how you've shown up in my personal life is that you have put a beautiful fingerprint of empowerment and of juiciness and of love and celebration and dancing. You should see this woman on the dance floor. If she had a whole bag of fuck, she still wouldn't give you one. She's having a great time. And I'm just inspired. And so I'm just so honored to be able to introduce you back to the Bluebirds, to Deja Blue podcast, and to our new YouTube channel where we have video now. And she's coming in hot from Bali, sitting in front of one of her own paintings, right here. A little bit of a tiny little story and context around that painting. Laila was experiencing some back pain, and how better to channel back pain than to create a painting and to put some gold on the lower part of the back to help heal herself. I mean, come on. So I'm so honored and so grateful to have you here again today, Mama. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, I love you and your introductions. They are fantastic. Absolutely. I'm so touched to hear that such a powerhouse like you is still nourishing and still feeding from the wisdom that I've shared with you. Gosh, 4 years ago, like some years ago.
Yeah.
And this keeps me inspired to continue doing this work. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing this work one yoni at a time, and it might feel like, you know, oh my God, we don't have enough time to help all the women of the world to wake up. And at the same time, seeing the impact that this wisdom can have in women like you that then take it to levels of leadership that can touch and do touch I think hundreds of thousands of women. I think your podcast is kind of making some noise, isn't it?
We're just under 150,000 unique downloads on the podcast. Hey!
Yes! We're doing it, Mabel. We're doing it. We are totally doing it. And to anybody that is listening, it's never small. It's never small. You never know when that drop of wisdom, that drop of power that you can share suddenly amplifies and touches millions of people. So so blessed to be here.
And you touch on something that really resonates, because whether it's leading women in group exercises, in ceremony, online, different platforms and containers in which I share my wisdom, your insights of what you've shared with me up until this point is laced into the fabric of what I share with my work. And so I love what you said about, can I really get this information out to as many people as I really would like to, but we don't realize that we actually have initiates that come in when we share our wisdom, and then they go out in their own leadership position and they touch lives that we will never be able to touch within this lifetime. So regardless of who the message is coming through, the message is getting out there, and that is the melting of the I identity and into the we, that we are messengers of the same voice, and that voice is love and empowerment.
Yes. And this is also the reason why, even though the universe sounds like a podcast for women, I really invite our brothers to tune in and listen, because the moment that we plug the female body back into her source of power, everything that comes through her is plugged into the source of power. And guess what? Everybody comes through a female body. There's no way out of that. So in a way, and this is why female body and female pleasure and female reality has been so heavily targeted throughout human history, is because we are the doorway to human consciousness incarnating in the planet. So the moment we plug the doorway back into wisdom, we plug the doorway back into balance, into sovereignty, into health. We plug in everything. We plug in everybody, because everybody comes through the female body. So even if you don't have a yoni, please stay with us today and listen to what we have to share, because if you happen to love women in whatever shape or form, from lover to mother to coworker, this is going to give you tools to understand us and why we are so motherfucking crazy and brilliant. B, how to treat us, collaborate with us, and get the best out of us in the best moments, because we're very complex. I was going to say machines, but there might be a better word. We're very complex organisms, but we do have built-in GPS. And once you learn how the GPS works, you can support us to give you the best. And when a woman is happy and when a woman is quote unquote properly functioning, we are miraculous devices of creation. So stay with us, even if you are not a lady. And if you are a lady and have lady parts, then this is definitely
get your lady parts out and start listening to us, yo. We're going in.
Totally. We are bringing a lot of tunes, that's for sure.
Cue bluebirds all just taking their clothes off and be like, what are you doing? I'm just listening to an episode of Bluebirds.
We should start normalizing that, though. We should totally start normalizing that.
Super into it. Yeah.
So if you can, take your shirt and your panties off.
Yeah, there you go. This is the prerequisite to listen to this podcast, is you have to be in your birthday suit. She's
going for it.
So I'm just curious. Okay, so before we even got on this, before I pressed record, we were just chatting and catching up. We haven't spoken for a while, and yet we've sort of been connected through the glorious waves and also simultaneously quite scary realm of Instagram, and being able to connect and to stay in the flow there. However, it's been really interesting and fascinating to be able to connect with you again after sort of 2020 has been happening, and just understanding your lens and you seeing my lens, and me living in Los Angeles right in the thick of what we call the belly of the beast, and you being out in Bali, and yet getting very similar intuitive hits. And I'm just curious, as we move into this rebalancing of the feminine and the masculine principle, I'm curious of what your perception is around how everything that's happening right now currently, how this is directly, or how we can place the power back in the hands within our body.
Yes. Just a little anecdote. Blue and I actually started 2020 together. I was living with you at the Mother Tree.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Wow. If somebody would have told us what was coming.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bye. See you later. Maybe I'll see you in the zombie apocalypse.
Wow. We've done amazing though. Amazing. So for me, it has been actually, I'm going to say one of, if not the best year of my life, because everything that I've been working on, everything that I've been studying, everything that I've researched, experimented, and experienced in my 30 plus years of life was preparing me for this. And I am going to do my best to bring you in the next hour podcast a distilled version of why the reclamation of the wisdom of our bodies in the face of what's happening, which is a deep state control and a health crisis, is actually a revolutionary act. Why more than ever today, plugging back into the wisdom that is built in our system, it's going to give us a path to freedom. And not doing it, it's going to give us a path to a very dark reality, I'm going to venture to say. This is the culmination of thousands of years of engineering human and social control. And you get to choose. Thanks God we still have the ability to choose. And the target, it's your body. Because even your mind, your brain, your intelligence, your attention, which is your more valuable asset, lives within your body, is built in your body. And so that's why your body is being targeted right now. It's not a coincidence that the crisis that we are experiencing has been triggered by a health issue. And I'm putting quotes here, not because I'm at any point denying that there is a reality of a virus that has been affecting people. I am very compassionate and very empathetic to this reality. I've lost 2 members of my family to COVID in the last 7 months. So I am aware of what I'm talking about. And I'm also aware that this is a very carefully engineered system to switch off the power that each one of us have by switching off our bodies. So in today's podcast, I really want to help you understand a huge part of that power that we all hold. Where is it, how to activate it, and how to use it? Because once your body is healthy and functioning properly, we are amazing. We are like cosmic Ferraris. We have everything within ourselves to create the life that we want. And the reason why we're not is because we are not using it. It's because we are filling up the tank of our Ferrari with junk food and medication and all those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of when I was having a conversation with Sadhguru. He talked about how we have been essentially gifted these incredible machines, and yet we don't know how to work them, and so we're wondering why our energy is displaced. Obviously, he didn't say it like this, but it was along these lines of once you know how to master this, then you can navigate this, but it doesn't have power over you. However, we've been given this quantum machine and we don't have the manual for it. And so I feel like specifically with these pieces that you have been studying, specifically around sensual and sexuality within the female experience, now we're actually starting to decode the manual book so we can actually start navigating this a little bit more consciously.
Yeah. And if you are listening to this podcast, I'm going to venture to say that you have a commitment to wake the fuck up. Because everybody that Blue brings in the podcast has a piece for that. Whether it's in the way you run your life, your business, your health, your consciousness, your whatever, right? You give us tools and perspectives into how to reclaim the sovereignty of our own realities of our own lives. And every single one of us exists is here because sexuality happened. Is the root of our existence. It is the doorway that God chose for us to become. And so if in our first podcast we talk about the relationship between pleasure and power, and I really recommend you to go back and hear it again. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about the relationship between sexuality, quote unquote, pleasure and reproduction, and leadership. Because once again, and I would like to start actually defining what leadership is, because it doesn't really matter if you are leading a nation, a classroom, a company, your family, your business, or just your individual life. Every single one of us is a leader. The moment that you have the ability to make free choices and generate a movement in space and time, you have become a leader. And traditionally, our leaders have been those who had the map to get somewhere, right? Mm. Well, guess what? The human body, and I'm going to take the human body beyond gender, has a GPS built in itself. And very specifically, the female body, which is an embodiment of the feminine energy, and we're going to define these two in a second. The female body has a GPS built in that crosses time, space, and quality. We have building cyclical systems that gives us information about time. We have building space because we create the eggs that will become new spaces of existence. And we can measure quality because in the female body, instinct becomes intuition that becomes wisdom. Let me say that again. Mm-hmm. In the female body, instinct, animal instinct, pure amygdala tracking information becomes intuition because we have a direct correlation between our sexuality and our consciousness, between our puss and our brain. And that intuition becomes wisdom. So listening to the female body and understanding feminine wisdom helps the tribe move forward. Mm-hmm. And this is why in the beginning, before everything got a little fact, we were living in matriarchal systems where the power of the shaman, the medicine woman, the wisdom keeper were women. And where traditionally women were the doorway to the divine. Mm-hmm. It's a biological reality. So we are spirit, and then we're inside of a mama's belly, and then we become humans. Mm-hmm. So if we really are here in service to a new humanity, we need to use the tools that we have. And once again, they happen to be between our legs. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is so, I mean, it's just so powerful. And every time I hear you speak, and when you tap into your channel and you tap into your area of expertise, I just start feeling the empowerment getting placed back in and being like, oh, wow, I can't wait to dance around the room and just reconnect to my body after this conversation. And like, okay, let's go, buddy.
Because you do it. You do it.
The secret sauce here is the feeling.
Yeah.
And to reconnect to the feeling, then we activate the energy and motion, the emotion, which actually places what we're calling into action. And so I would love to hear you break down. Okay, so, all right, this is an opportunity for me to bring the power back. I'm feeling into the fear of the collective consciousness. I'm feeling into the fear of the conversations around vaccinations, that you're not going to be healthy unless you have this vaccination, this external thing, outsourcing your power. I am curious, what are the action steps now moving forward as a woman to reconnect with her own innate power that lies within right now without outsourcing anything? I need to do anything to access this.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to answer this question, but I'm going to answer this question for both genders, not just as a woman. Okay.
Perfect.
So, and then I would love to define feminine versus female, because language is really important. And a lot of what's happening in the space right now is that those who are controlling the narrative. This is a sentence that I love from Pluto. Those who control the narrative control the power of society. I mean, he said it in a way more poetic way, but basically, the narrative, it's creating reality, and the narrative is done through words, through language. We are meaning making creatures. So the power of the words that we use, it's extremely important. And there's a heavy target in female, male, women, men. This whole gender conversation is super important. So we're going to go into that. But first, I want to answer to your question. You are in a space, which is planet Earth in 2020, where there is there's big speakers on the streets with a narrative of fear, a narrative of sickness, a narrative of crisis, right? And what you need to understand is that your human experience, your physical body, I'm going to use the word machine here very consciously. It's like a machine that it's picking information and shuffling information from 4 different channels. The first channel is the mental one. You got all the news, all the input that's coming through the mental channel. The second one is the body, where you are also getting information. You're getting a mask that does not allow you to breathe proper oxygen. Your lungs can fill it. And you're getting medication, and you're getting junk food, and you're getting hand sanitizer 7 times a day, and you're getting virus spray. Like now they spray this thing on the airplanes a few times a day, and you're getting a machine that apparently controls your temperature. I don't know what else it does because I never looked inside, pointed at your third eye, at your head 7 times a day. So your body is receiving a lot of input. Then you have your emotional awareness, which is receiving information every time you turn on the channel of the news and you see how many people have died and you get sad. We are empathetic. We have mirror neurons. So we are constantly empathizing with our surroundings, and the information that we're getting, it's very carefully designed to create very specific set of emotions. And then you have your spiritual channel, which if you're in this podcast, you might actually be tending a little bit to that garden, but most people has completely forgotten about it. Mm-hmm. So how are you expecting your machine to function in health if everything you're putting into it is sickness? It's almost impossible. What your body is going to produce, it's a result of the ingredients that you put into it. So if you can do something today, switch off the news. Honestly, I'm not inspiring you to be disinformed, but I'm definitely inspiring you to stop consuming the wrong narrative, because a narrative of fear is going to reproduce thoughts of fear. Thoughts of fear will create emotions of fear. Emotions of fear will create a physical reaction of fear. And there you go. Like, you can't expect to have relaxation if all you're putting in the machine is stress. Mm-hmm. So it's extremely, extremely important for us to understand that it's not random that what we're being fed is fear, because that is the objective right now of the general narrative, is to create fear.
So I'm going to ask you a question. This might be a little bit of a curveball. Being very mindful of, okay, my emotions, my thoughts, what I'm putting out there is essentially allowing my inner landscape, my every single cell of my body to vibrate at the frequency in which I'm having the narrative or the conversation that I'm experiencing. Fear essentially weakens our immune system, makes us more susceptible to being sick, but as many other things with that fear will create over a long period of time. Now, there's this dance that I'm in currently, and this is a slight curveball, and we will come back. Is around the exposure of specifically the topic that is being asked for me to highlight is child sex trafficking and actually what's happening on the planet. with the pedophile rings and just like the really nitty gritty foundation of what this country is built off of, to understand what is really happening so we can understand what we're really moving in the direction of, and how I could truly be of service from a place of a deeper level of empathy of actually truly what's playing out. Now, I'm on this really interesting tightrope of being presented with this information, feeling a resonance to take action from this place while simultaneously going into these rabbit holes, but not feeding the fear. And so where's the balance here? Or what's your perspective on feeling into what is happening, utilizing my platform to be able to be of service from a place of personal truth and to illuminate and activate truth within others, while simultaneously not feeding into the narrative of fear in such a dense topic?
Yeah.
I'm curious just what your perception of that is.
Yeah, I hear you. And anytime that things get too complicated for me, I make a pause and bring it back to basics.
Mm-hmm.
So let's bring it back to a very simple metaphor. Let's imagine that you and Andrew are at the gym and you're about to start doing weights. I've seen that you've started lifting weights, and you have a weight bar that has 20 kilos in each side. That's total 40 kilos. And then you have one that has 20, and then you have that one that has 10. And you go and try the one that has 40 because that's what Andre is doing, and you just realize that you can't. You can't lift that 40 kilos. Now, you can stay there and break your back trying to lift those 40 kilos, and we will lose you. Or you can train with the 5 kilos till your body is strong enough to take 10, till your body is strong enough to take 20. So for some of us, diving into child sex trafficking right now is counterproductive because we are going to burn ourselves completely. Our emotional system cannot take the cruelty of what's happening in that world. Our psychological and mental awareness cannot fathom the complication of this topic. So what can we do? We can do maybe start researching, start generating awareness, start bringing the conversations, start realizing, okay, I am not going to buy any more clothes from beep, fill in the gap, because the person that owns this company has been revealed as someone that supports child traffic. I am not going to buy this beep magazine because they are portraying young girls with over-sexualized images. Like, there is levels.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is if you try to take the 40 kilos and you realize you can't, you quit. And then you turn your back into it.
It's actually so funny that you use that analogy, because I went to the gym the other day with Andre and I was lifting these weights and I was really getting it, and I lifted too heavy and I creaked my back and I've been out for like 4 days. It's so funny. It's so funny that you use that analogy. I'm like, are you kidding me with this analogy right now? I'm literally like hobbling around.
But let me venture here, and we will come back to the yoni, but let me venture here to say something. Everything that's being like, fucking question everything, my loves, because everything that's being fed to you by the main news channel is designed. Why do you think everybody's suddenly talking about child trafficking? It seems like it's a great thing, but it actually, same like with Black Lives Matter, it has the intention to polarize society, to confront us with each other, to overwhelm our systems. So we turn our back into it, like you just did with the weights. This is why it's so important that you reclaim your own inner sovereignty, your own leadership, and you choose for yourself. What can you take? Where can you put yourself to be of service? How can you build that muscle until you actually can be the person that, stops child trafficking for your country? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I essentially the information actually came through me in a ceremony, and I was in meditation and I was shown the depth of really how far this goes. And I've been shown multiple times in meditation or internal guidance. And I was like, with this information, what on earth am I supposed to do with it? And the guidance I got back was actually train, get strong mentally, get strong physically. That's why I started going to the gym and I was like getting those weights, because I'm like, I'm training to be able to house these narratives without the darkness consuming me. And but I also think it's very fascinating because, you know, like what you said in the analogy really hits home, because there has been times where yesterday I was with my operations wizard, I like to call her, Chelsea, and I was standing in my closet, and I somehow had my phone connected to the speaker. I didn't realize, and I was like doing just like a little bit of rabbit hole before bed, and I was like, and it was like, the pornography industry is and it was like this really dark, scary voice, and I was like watching this video in the corner of my closet, and Chelsea just looks at me and she goes, "Blue."
No.
And it was just that, like, not before bed, come on. And so it's just interesting that you have mentioned the analogy of the back, and that's exactly what's happening. And there is a curiosity, and you're talking about getting stronger and coming back to like lighter weights and continuing the weightlifting, but to not take on more than I can chew, and to be feeding into the narrative of the fear, which is essentially the gender of the polarization that is being pushed on the planet. And so yeah, I do really resonate with you, and I do want to continue to I know I threw in a curveball, but I just felt like this is prime, like this is brilliant. I really want to talk about this.
But it's not such a curve, because so if you think of 2020, you think of COVID, racism, and child trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a reason why that was pushed in 2020. There were a million other things that happened that have been way more deadly sicknesses, and there have been huge political and social issues, and there is a reason why those three were pushed at the forefront of the news in 2020. And the reason is, once again, to have an impact in human consciousness, through having an impact in human emotion that creates an impact in human body. The same way the female body has been targeted throughout history, with shame, with suppression, with competitivity, jealousy. There is always a narrative that turns us against the natural way our bodies will lead us. And so if you can understand that the fear is lowering down your immune system, you can also understand that shame blocks your sexual response. Mm-hmm. And this is where I'm going to say something that is possibly politically incorrect, and I'm sure a lot of people will have a lot to say, but please reserve your right to switch on and switch off the information channels on your own intuitive guidance. You are not serving the planet more for being there, consuming more news and getting more informed. You really want to end racism? Start treating your brothers and sisters of color in a better way. You don't necessarily need to dedicate the next 6 months of your life to consume information that is triggering your nervous system to be on flight or fight 24/7. That's not, like, we are confusing ourselves and each other when we are forcing this news on each other. I understand that it's super important to inform ourselves. And I know this is possibly going against, but reserve the right to switch off whenever it's too much for your system. Because we have a sentence in Spanish that says, a burned firefighter can't extinguish fires. If you get too close to the flames and it's too much for you, once again, the metaphor of the weight, you're out. And then, we need you. We need you strong, and we need you calm, and we need you positive. and we need you inspired. And if you're going to go down the tunnels of New York to rescue babies that are being sexually abused, we need you strong. Mm-hmm. And we need you able to hold those kids in love and compassion, mm-hmm. not in fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I 100% feel you. I feel the fire of wanting to move in this direction and illuminate truth into it. And simultaneously, I do think that the only way to truly be of service is that I'm coming from a place of compassion and love, and not coming from a place of fear. Like, even just, it's so interesting. Like today, I had a whole schedule of podcasts and content creation and building out the Patreon and doing all of these different things. And I woke up this morning and I posted a video about it for the Patreon, and in the comments there was like a couple of comments that women were really not happy with the video, and it created this whole thing on the comment section. And I had Chelsea here set up all of the camera equipment ready to go, and I was reading the comments, and I'm just like, oh, it's not my intention. Like, really just feeling the weight and my empathy. I'm training myself on a daily basis to feel everything. That's my service at work, while simultaneously not taking it personally, which is such a dance, to put ourselves out there online and to not take it personally when someone is triggered by something that is shared, and to listen when it resonates, and simultaneously also not to let the water like go over on board and take the ship down. And I was reading the comments, and it just took me out of like what I was doing. And it took hours for us to even create any content from that point forward, because I just felt like every time I was speaking, it was coming from a very unsettled place. And so I'm no longer in service. I'm no longer being able to create the content. I'm no longer being able to support these platforms. I'm no longer be able to actually share anything, because all of a sudden I was taken out. And so that's sort of a minor example of what you're talking about, is like, if we are receptible, and we're more receptible when we're in a place of fear, all of a sudden our lens goes and everything becomes the enemy or the division or the duality of experience. And then all of a sudden we're no longer of service. And that's the actual very secret source that is needed for us to truly be able to move through this as oneness, as unity, and from a place of empowerment.
Absolutely. And to circle it back to our podcast today, that is the result of a completely, can I curse?
Yeah.
A completely fucked up, out of balance society that has anchored its system in an overly masculine way of doing things. Mm-hmm. This doesn't mean the masculine is bad. This means anything out of balance becomes out of balance. And so in a overly driven, goal-oriented, go, perform reality, we exhaust ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so we go from not knowing about child trafficking or whatever it is to having to exhaust ourselves to be completely out of the game again. Mm-hmm. We go, we haven't found the way to act in alignment and in resonance with our essence and our nature. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about this today is when we step into this new model of leadership, let us bring the wisdom in our bodies so that we can rebalance that way of being from the completely masculine, exhausting resources place to a place of receptivity and cycle. Like, if you received this morning all of those comments, the extremely masculine way to do it is like, I'm going to push through and still deliver what I said I was going to deliver. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work because you are committed to authenticity and truth. It will work for somebody else. They will put a bit more of makeup and push through, right? Versus, if I am coming from the feminine and I am being receptive, I need to work with what I got. Like the female body, when it gets the sperm gets inside, it works with what it has been given. It doesn't push through to do what she had planned. It creates with what has come inside, and it does not have it does not create separation. It integrates. And this is how we can swallow the whole anger of the world and transmute it into love. There is not enough anger. There is not enough hatred. There is not enough separation that we cannot transmute into love. This is why it doesn't matter how bad it gets, we make it through. And you and I know it because love transmutes it all. And this is why we have been separated from love. We have been told all the reasons why we're not supposed to love each other, all the reasons why we're not supposed to physically love each other, the reason why sex is so dirty, all the reasons why we are not supposed to emotionally love each other, if we have different skin color or if we have different political inclinations. It's all a target to love. And I think that the new way of being, this reawakening of the feminine beyond gender, is the reawakening of a way of being that is anchored in love versus anchored in fear. Because if you were 5 years old and you got scared from the monster in your dreams, your mama didn't take away your fear by explaining you the science of nightmares. She took away your fear by putting your head on her chest and loving you through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the female body, it's an embodiment of that feminine energy. And we said 20 minutes ago that we were going to go in the definition of feminine, so that we can understand that it's really beyond gender. The way I like to break this down is we have masculine and feminine, which are archetypal ways that the energy expresses itself. I can say that a city is more feminine or more masculine. I can say that a person is dressing more feminine and more masculine. And it has nothing to do with gender identification. It has nothing to do with biology. It's just an essence of the energy. And the best way for me to explain this without falling into cliches is looking at the yin yang. There is the qualities of the yin, which is the feminine aspect, and there is the qualities of the yang, which is the masculine aspect. And the yin is nourishing, is inclusive, it's slow, it's creative, it's chaotic, it's matter, it's everything that nature utilizes to exist. And the masculine is consciousness, is information, is direction, is structure. It's almost that which infuses the matter. That would be the feminine. This is the best way I've learned to explain this. A second level, closer to the matter, is female and male. And this is a pure biological reality. My cat has balls, is a male cat. You were born with a vagina, you're a female body. The last level is the gender identification. And this is a social free choice. You can be born on a female body and identify as the man. So this is where we will say men or women, and this is when gender roles come in, and thanks God we're starting to see a fluid space where humans are reclaiming their freedom to be whatever the heck they want in every single moment, which I absolutely celebrate. So Blue and I are born in female bodies, and we both identify as women. This could change tomorrow, I don't think in our particular case, and in many of our brothers and sisters, finally they have the ability to express this. So feminine, masculine, female, male, men and women. 3 different things. And I think we are all grown up enough to learn this and utilize it properly. It's been a battle for me for a long time because I'm not a female leadership coach. That will mean I only coach women how to be leaders. I'm a feminine leadership coach. I'm teaching humans how to lead from the place of the feminine, whether you are a man or a woman. Mm-hmm. I love explaining this.
I'm here for it. Let's go.
It gives us a lot of freedom. And so today, one of the things that I really want to give you that we couldn't touch on the last podcast is how the female body, as an embodiment of the feminine energy, has built in itself a very powerful map for us to lead our lives.
Mm-hmm.
If we are talking about the feminine being inclusive, being nourishing, being creative, being chaotic, we can look at the feminine body and see the manifestation of that, the roundness, the inclusion, the creation. We make life, the chaos. Our body has all these hormones and all these things, right? Where the masculine body, it's an embodiment of the masculine energies, the direction, even just the sexual organs, right? The male organ is like phallus, is the direction, is the goal oriented. It has a mission, is to produce the sperm and to inject it on the egg. So the reason why female bodies get so severely targeted throughout history is because there is an intention to target the feminine wisdom, the feminine essence. And why? Once again, because once you switch off half of who we are, we fall out of balance. And now it's more possible, or possible even, to inject fear into society and have everybody buy into it, because you have thrown the balance off completely.
Mm-hmm. So when you are in that feminine empowerment leadership, feminine leadership expert, and you are guiding someone into this place, what do you reconnect them with first? What is like usually your go-to when reading someone or interacting with them and then shifting them into a narrative of personal empowerment? What does that look like?
I would say the first thing that we do is we go into the body, because the mind is very tricky. The mind is being programmed to fight against us, and our ego speaks through our mind. And the body is a little bit more, in a way, it's because it has built in biological wisdom. It's a little, I'm in my personal experience and from the studies that I've done, it's easier to access and to make shifts in the body. So if I will be working with a woman who wants to, awaken her own power and go back to herself, we will first look into her body, and we will understand how does her body work, how to access that internal GPS. Mm-hmm. And one of the most powerful things that the female body does is the cycle, the menstrual cycle, because it's the cycle that perpetuates life. It's the cycle that makes sure that we have more humans. And women have approximately 450 menstrual cycles in their life. And, well, basic information that everybody knows, it's around 28 days. And it doesn't really matter if the woman knows about it or not. It keeps on happening. And because there is a relationship, there is a direct correlation between female sexuality and female consciousness, that this cycle affects consciousness. Mm-hmm. And I will be interested to know in what part of your cycle you are today, because your quote unquote hatred comments this morning will affect you more or less depending on what part of your cycle you are actually. Mm-hmm. And so for a woman, and anybody that works with a woman, to understand where she is in her cycle in every moment, it's a metric to know how to set herself up for success. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. See, when it comes to my cycle, I'm still very disconnected from it. It's sort of like, I don't really track it. I'm not really very super familiar with it, to be honest, but I think that I'm sort of throwing a lot of my power out to the wind with that one, specifically the more that you talk about it. And it's definitely something that I want to really start reeling in, because it sounds like, again, it's giving a little bit more of a deeper dive of the instruction manual that comes with this powerful mechanism that we have, and learning how to navigate it. So whereabouts in the cycle that it makes you more sensitive to Instagram comments? Tell me, give me the answers.
So you were talking about how feeling is the key, right? And how you're here in service to humanity by feeling, right? And so what makes you feel? What is the part of your body that feels?
How does it make me feel?
What is the part of your body that feels? How do you register feeling?
Oh, it's in my stomach. It's like in my chest and my stomach, and it's like a very ungrounded butterflies of like, oh no, I've hurt people, I've upset someone, I didn't mean to, I was just sharing about my Patreon and I made a joke and it wasn't funny for them, and like, and it just like kind of almost like goes into being like a little girl, like. And it's funny because I've created thousands of hours of content online, and in those moments of like 1-2 comments, sometimes I read them and I'm like, I don't resonate with that. Like, I send you love, continue on. And then other times I'll read it and be like, I should probably just go find a tiny little cabin in the middle of the forest and never create content ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's massively irrational.
And the difference of how you react to one or the other could be perfectly determined to where you are in your cycle, because the part of you that registers emotion is your limbic system. As you know, we have 3 brains. The first one is the amygdala, which is the instinctual one, is our reptilian brain. The second one is the limbic, which is the emotional system that only mammals have. And the third one is the prefrontal cortex, which is the neurotic Woody Allen that is constantly judging. Your limbic system, which is the emotional brain, processes a very specific set of chemicals that are directly mediated by your sexual organs. Mm-hmm. So, if you had an amazing lovemaking session with Andrea last night and you had a powerful, deep orgasm, your vagina sent very strong electrical impulses to your amygdala. Your hypothalamus, which is above the brain, started producing a very potent chemical called oxytocin that made you bond even more with Andrew and made you love him even more, but it also made you bond with yourself and your dharma and your message and who you are, and made you feel like you have a space in the world. And then your pituitary gland started producing dopamine, which made you feel like super inspired and super ready to go and super ready to wake up and be on a mission. And then it also produced prolactin, which made you have a very clear sense of focus. And then no comment can get you. Because you know who you are, you know where you belong, you know where your dharma is, and you know where you're going. Mm-hmm. So, is the antidote of every problem in a woman's body and in a woman's life an orgasm? Yeah, I would like to say, kind of. It definitely sets your physical chemistry for success. You might have still had an amazing lovemaking session with Andrew last night, and for other reasons, because you are in a part of your moon cycle where your oxytocin is lower or your dopamine is lower, and now we're going to get into seeing which all of phases are. But for me, what the point that I want to come across is nothing that happens in your mind is independent of your body. And so if you want to be able to set yourself up for success and to set your emotions into a harmonious place, you need to understand how the chemistry of your body works, because they are not separated. Feeling happy, it's having, and feeling fulfilled is having serotonin. Feeling inspired is having dopamine. This doesn't mean that there is no mystical, spiritual, romantic connection with our emotions. Quite the opposite. What means is spirit uses chemistry to infuse its messages in our body. And you've talked about plant medicine a lot in your podcast, right? Why was plant medicine used by shamans? is because it's through chemistry that we connect with the divine. You can already see this, read this in the Kabbalah, which is the Jewish text over 5,000 years ago. They talked about how the pineal gland releases DMT, the moment of death, for the soul to exit the body. So we need to reclaim that marriage between science, between chemistry and spirituality. And in the female body, this is an everyday reality. You tracking your moon cycle is you understanding the connection between your spirituality and your physical body, because you don't have the same chemical soup when you're ovulating than when you're about to menstruate. If you are right now, a few days before you start bleeding, any comment will get you. Your prolactin levels are super high and you're feeling uncomfortable in yourself. And so it's so important for us and those who want to work with us to understand this reality. Maybe we should just go right into it and talk about these 4 phases. What do you think?
I'm just curious. So now I'm really getting a very strong pulse of the importance of tracking your cycle and having a deeper level sense of awareness of self by doing this. How does one go about that? Like learning about how to track the cycle. And I'm just, for me to step away from this podcast and go, all right, this is really important. This is allowing me to actually be able to read the manual. How do I do this?
Well, first you understand the different phases of this cycle, which might sound like extremely complicated, but it actually has only 4 phases. It's the same phases as the moon: waxing, full, waning, and new. And then you wait until you bleed next time, and you start counting. And you make sure your boyfriend knows where you are in your moon cycle.
First and foremost, the girlfriend's got to know where she's at in the moon cycle to let him know, because I'm just sort of like, I'm kind of like this painting. You just don't know what you're going to get. It's a little crazy over here and a little more smoother over here. One day I'll wake up and I'll be like, where we at? Oh, I feel silly today. And then that was this morning. I was like, listening to Celine Dion, I'm Alive. And I was like dancing around the house in my underwear and being all silly. And that was me this morning over here. But then by about 2 o'clock, I've made my way over to this point right here. And I'm a little more like chill. And all of a sudden it's like, it's so intense up here. It's like, I'm the ocean, I don't know. But at least I can give him some warning if I know where I'm at on my cycle.
Well, you're going to still have the same fun ride. Even if you wanted to avoid it, being a woman means you're going to walk all over that painting. But now you're not a victim of when that's going to happen. It's not a Russian roulette. It becomes something that you actually know. And you can be like, all right, well, tomorrow starts silliness. So I'm going to put my 6 back-to-back podcasts about science tomorrow.
Right.
Because I just can't show up for it.
Right.
I work 3 weeks a month. The 4th week, it's for myself. PMS, we've talked about this before. PMS means please make space. There is a week a month where women are meant to be at home with themselves or wherever they want to be. They don't have to be at home. They can be out in the forest, but it's not time to be working. Right. So feminine leadership. Last year I was working with one of the CEOs of Microsoft Italy. Well, one of the things she changed in her leadership is 1 week a month, she wasn't going to the office. She was working from home. And slowly, all the senior executives started having that option as well. If they were women, the week that they were bleeding, they were working from home. What happens? Productivity skyrocket. Why? Because the woman is designed to be at home that week or in a place that is quiet, and it's not designed to be chugging painkillers to be able to be sitting on her ass while her body is bleeding. Right. So let's look at those 4 phases. And then maybe you can, share with your bluebirds about your moon as soon as you start tracking it. We have four.
If you're listening to this at home and you're tuning in and you resonate with my experience, where it's a little bit more careless, throwing it out to the wind, but you're like, actually, I'm going to start tracking this shit so that I can actually start recalibrating myself and not being so unpredictable, but also allowing myself to be predictably unpredictable. And so the invitation is to join me on this journey as I start tracking it from this point forward, if you're not already. And let's do this together. We'll have a little accountability system. All right, Mama, we're ready for you.
That would be amazing. And it's not only for you to, here's what I would love for us to understand. This is a huge resource. And so empowerment comes when you have the ability to utilize your resources. You can take responsibility, which is your ability to respond to what anyways is happening. You're anyways going to be bleeding some 20 years of your life, right? So you want to be able to utilize it in your advance. If I'll tell you that when you are ovulating, that's like 7 days of your ovulation, you are biologically designed to be magnetic, and you have a job interview and you can choose the date, you're going to put it in the middle of your ovulation. It's not like suddenly on top of your CV and your professional experience, your pheromones are working for you. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you use it? And this is what feminine disempowerment is all about. It's taking the fact that we are powerful beyond the mind and suppressing it. Mm-hmm. Because there's nothing you can do against the pheromones of a woman when she is ovulating. Whether you're a man or a woman, you're feeling attracted to it. It's designed that way. Let's fucking use it for ourselves. Don't we have to bleed anyways once a month, and it's a little bit of a headache for many of us? Well, let's use it instead of just suffering from it. Mm-hmm. This is why I've called my work leadership. Because if we were to use all the resources that we have as women, I was going to say we could rule the world. We should rule the world and do way better than we have done. And this is also why if the mother in the house is happy, the family is happy. Mm-hmm. We are innate leaders. We create life. Mm-hmm. So let's go down the rabbit hole. We have 4 phases.
I live in the rabbit hole these days, babes.
Menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulation phase, and luteal phase.
And what phase?
Luteal phase. Uh-huh. So if we start by the moment that we bleed, mm-hmm. that's our menstrual phase. And that's count day 1. And because it's 28 days in a normal cycle, there's no normal or not normal. Every single woman is different. But in an average cycle, there's 28 days. So I'm going to break it into 4 chunks of 7. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the first 7 days would be the menstrual phase. Hopefully you don't bleed 7. You don't need to bleed more than 2. And this is one of the things I help women understand and revert back. A healthy menstrual cycle, you're only bleeding the egg. You don't need to lose all the linen, all the walls of your uterus. It's a whole nother rabbit hole to get into. As soon as you finish bleeding, you start your follicular phase, which is, in a way, if you will, is your most masculine phase, because it's the phase where you have less estrogens. The next egg hasn't been released yet, and your body is the strongest. It's the moment to go out and get it. Mm-hmm. And you go into your ovulation phase, which is the moment where you are the most magnetic, is the moment where you smell like sex, basically. You're like calling in to be cross-pollinated, because it's a moment when you can get pregnant. But you can get pregnant to have a baby, or you can get pregnant to create a project. Like, it's the moment to receive as the feminine, to create new life in whatever shape or form that is for you in this moment of your life. And then you enter the luteal phase, which is the death phase, which is where that egg that has not been fertilized dies and is released to start the new menstruation. Just with this awareness of these 4 basic phases, you can have sort of a map. There is a moment where your body is ready to go out and conquer because there is no internal process of maturation happening. There's a moment where, let's just say, you're more masculine, just that follicular phase right after you finish bleeding. Then there is a moment when you are fertile, when you are magnetic, when you're creating new life. There is a moment where you are dying and starting to go internal. And there is a moment where you're bleeding, when you are inward and quiet. Mm-hmm. And if you want to pair this with nature, once again, that female wisdom, feminine wisdom of the cycles of nature, this will be the spring as the moment when you are, creating, like feeling strong and about to start creating life. There is the summer when everything is blooming and you're magnetic. There is the autumn when things are like falling and about to die. And there is the winter when you are like internal and nothing is going to grow in winter. You can make as much love as you want. If you're bleeding, you're not going to get pregnant. Watch out with this one, because there is actually the possibility of a second egg getting ready at the same time. Is an anomaly, but it can happen. So if you're listening to this and you do not want to get pregnant, it's not 100% safe to have sex during menstruation. But let's look first into the average, and then we'll look into the anomalies. So the most important phase for me to understand from a leadership perspective are the two most, the ones that I have in my calendar, and the other two are kind of in between, right? Are the ovulation and the menstruation, which are like two sides of the cycle. The ovulation that happens around the day 14, between the 14th and the 20th day of our cycle, we are at estrogen peak levels. So it's an optimum time for empathy, for relating to others, for communicating, for doing teamwork, for connecting with people. And we are also physically at the peak of our beauty. So I am at the end of that week right now, and I can feel it. I can see it. If I have a photo shoot, I'm going to put it in this week. There's no way I'm doing a photo shoot when I'm in my mood. Mm-hmm. Because it's designed. My body is designed for this. It's also a really good time to work in self-worth, since you're already feeling good into your body. And it's the peak of pregnancy risk. There is I wouldn't advise even the pullback during ovulation. Your body is designed to get pregnant. When you move from this into the next phase, what happens is your progesterone levels start going up. And the progesterone is the hormone that makes you go inward. So it's where you will start integrating polarity. If we said that first week after your moon is when you are more masculine, and your menstruation will be when you're more feminine, this is in between. You are starting to integrate that polarity. It's a time where the changes in testosterone and estrogen make you start going internal. Is a really good time for creativity, for intuition, for cleaning the house, for organizing ideas, for identifying problems, for throwing away things that are no longer needed. To paint, to write, to dance, anything that gives you a creative outlet, but is sourcing, self-sourcing. It's definitely not the best time to do logical thinking, planning, sticking to a plan. You're gonna get frustrated because your brain it's full of chemicals that are not prompting for that. After that phase, we land into the menstruation time. And for me, once again, PMS, those are the days of PMS, is please make space. My progesterone is at a peak level, and that is creating, if we talked about the correlation between female sexuality and female consciousness, right? My sexual organs are producing the impulses that will trigger the chemicals that will put me in one or the other state of consciousness. When I am in my menstruation, I am in a transcendental state. It's a mind state that helps me connect directly with my inner vision. If women will really go inward, during the menstruation time, when they come out of it, they will have full business plans to accomplish, because we have direct access to our intuition, to our visioning, to connect with spirit. And it's very interesting, right? The religions all across the world tell women that they cannot get into the temples and they cannot pray and they cannot talk to God if they're bleeding. Your blood is dirty. Like, I live in Bali, and you can't go into the temple to pray if you're bleeding, because it's the most powerful time. Because if you will go in the temple while you're bleeding, you will download direct messages from God. And then you will be really powerful. And then we could not control you and tell you to go home and be quiet and cook dinner for us. And this is why...
Same thing with the shamans, in the Amazon and in indigenous traditions, that you cannot sit in ceremony if you're bleeding.
Exactly. And I have a sister, I won't say her name, that serves medicine for the tribe, that, and is a very powerful sister. And every time she sits in ceremony, she bleeds. Whether she's in her cycle or not, her body goes and bleeds, because her body knows. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I really want to do ceremonies without bleeding, because it's a little bit of a mess. Like, I'm there sitting in my whites and I'm bleeding. And she's like, oh, my body knows. That is the most intuitive time. Mm-hmm. It makes me really powerful. So here we are, being the heretics that challenge all the traditions. And I think I already burned in the fire a few lifetimes ago. So ready to do it again.
This lifetime.
This lifetime. And then finally we will arrive to the next, because we started in ovulation, so the next phase right after menstruation will be that moment where, in a way, it's like you dry, you finish bleeding, and now your body is, before it starts the next maturation process, it has higher testosterone, so you are more motivated to go do things. It's optimal time for logical thinking, mental focus, planning, structure, physical stamina, lifting up weights, starting new projects. It might not be the best time to do empathy, things that require empathy, because you're really in the go masculine. So you're doing a team building meeting, wait till the next week. Mm-hmm. And it's not the best time to be in the flow, because again, your body's going forward. But for me, is the time where I go train. During this week, I train every day. And then as I'm approaching my moon, I train less days. And then my week of my moon, I don't lift weights. I go get massages. Mm-hmm. And ladies, I am an entrepreneur. I'm a boss babe. I have a successful, abundant business. And I run it in the feminine principles. Before, I was also, because I'm a very ambitious person, I was also accomplishing things, but I was bitter, I was exhausted, I was burnout, I was not juicy, and I wasn't having nearly as much fun in life. So honestly, once you start using your body the right way, the way that your body is designed for, you are setting yourself up for success in a completely new way.
So fascinating. It's so exciting. It's just knowledge of the computer that we're already operating. It's just, I just think, okay, cool. If I'm achieving this now, let's get really aligned and let's really understand my moon cycle and how to navigate this and how to understand it and how to schedule and structure myself around what is, as opposed to forcing what isn't. Essentially, it's I'm supposed to be doing 4 podcasts today, and all I want to do is lay on the biomat and do nothing but that, or everything but that, and yet forcing it, and trying to put a round peg in a square hole, and forcing what isn't. And that is sort of the patriarchy that runs in the fabric of my consciousness, as opposed to, I'm actually going to structure myself around the cycles of where I'm going to be most supportive with the creative project, and have a whole week of just content creation, and then having a whole week of rest, and then having a whole week of connecting with people, and responding to emails, and just learning how to navigate this actually feels very, very empowering. And it's really ultimately everything that already is. It's just understanding what is and being able to navigate from that place, which is again in sort of resourcing the power as opposed to outsourcing the power, saying that something outside of me me is going to bring me this sense of fulfillment or this sense of empowerment. So it's very, 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 very powerful information. I'm so into it.
I mean, I think this is honestly, and with all humility, I'm going to say this is the one thing that can save our life and our world and our planet. Because like if you extrapolate this information, and for those of you who are in male bodies, if you extrapolate this information to the planet, you will realize that we are not respecting the natural cycles of nature. We are not respecting regeneration. We are harvesting out of time. We are stressing the planet to produce when it's not the time. We are not respecting the natural evolution of our kids in their education process. We are, everything that we do into the planet is reverting back to ourselves, and it's not respecting the cycles. So this is why I believe that if women wake up and they change the world, they treat themselves and their bodies, then the world will naturally wake up, because it is that feminine way of being, of leading, of relating, that is in harmony with nature, in harmony with what anyways is, versus becoming slaves of the mind that is having some construct that is being programmed by someone else, and there's goes against nature completely, and it's not making us happy because it's not designed for that.
It's also going to help us learn to listen more, essentially, which is like, if we're listening to our own body, we're learning how to listen to the natural rhythms. We can start actually training ourselves to listen to the earth, listen that there is a symbiotic relationship with nature, listen to the subtle energies beyond what the words are saying, but the energy behind the words, listen on a deeper level and be able to retain the information of the voiceless, so that we can act from that place, as opposed to sort of going from that, like, gotta do, and I'm not listening to what's in with me. I'm not listening to my own emotions. I'm not listening to my own rhythm. So how on earth can I hear the planet? How on earth can I hear the cries from the individuals that don't have a voice right now?
Exactly. And that answers the same question that took us a little bit on that curve, which is like, how do I find the balance between, getting full into the rabbit hole of sex trafficking now or not? Well, if you listen, you know how deep you can go in every moment to be in service. And the problem is that the noise is huge. This is why I said, switch off the channels, switch them off. You're not doing better by consuming more information. Switch them off, go in silence, and then pick and choose where and who you listen to, and feel way more than you think, and not feel on the shallow, surfacey, emotional, sentimental level. No, the deep feeling, the feeling that allows you to listen to the wisdom of your own body. Because once you start tuning into whether it's your guts or your pussy or your balls or your heart, and really let the prefrontal cortex go a little quiet. Wow, you and I are fairly young, and we've got where we've got because we were taught sometime, maybe a decade ago, to start listening. And we went on our journeys. And what does plant medicine do is it switches off the prefrontal cortex and it allows you to listen deeper. What does yoga do, meditation, breath work, healthy eating, is it allows you to listen deeper.
Supports with eliminating the static noise and the silence, be able to hear.
And I'm surprised and inspired how good you're doing in platforms like Instagram, where there's so much horrible noise all the time, and censorship and targeting, and it's beautiful that you're being able to interject, and introduce powerful wisdom in those platforms, at least until we create and discover new platforms where there's a bit less noise and more truth.
Thank you, Mum. I appreciate that acknowledgement. Well, I think that's a really beautiful place to close it out. What an amazing conversation. And yeah, I still feel that there's so much more. There's still like a ... where we can do like, Laila comes back in season 3 with another download of cosmic information. But let's let this part integrate and marinate and be in the contemplation of it, and really allow us to be able to sit in the listening now of our own body, of our own cycles, and utilizing this information for the empowerment of ourselves, and allowing us to be to essentially take action from that place, as opposed to from a place of depletion, but should.
Yeah, totally.
Support
And to fill in that ... this one is especially for women. I have created an entire online course that I named Radiance, and we will be launching sometime early next year, probably by the time that the podcast comes out, that goes deep down into this. And you have, down to the hormone, to the dates, to like with PDFs and exercises and videos and resources for you to keep on coming back to check. Because you're not supposed to learn this out of just a 45-minute podcast. So that is always going to be available on my website or my resources for all of you who want to go deeper and really apply this into your life.
Amazing. So if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, oh, holy shit, this girl's on some next level stuff, I want to follow her, I want to be a part of it, I want to get in touch, I want to continue to follow her journey in real time, how do we find you?
So you make sure that you write my name properly by looking at my name on the podcast, which Blue will put Layla El Khadri the right way. And then with that, you follow my Instagram, which I'm doing my best to grow, because I know it's a really powerful tool. And so I need all your help to keep that channel fighting against the algorithms of Instagram. I share a lot of wisdom there, and I also share promotions and offers and stuff. Same name will get you to my Facebook page, also another good place to be plugged, and to my website. And in my website, you will find all my online courses, all my videos. There's a YouTube channel that you can also come and visit. There's a newsletter that will keep you informed. So I'm very active. This is my passion. This is what I do every day. And soon, beginning of 2021, we're launching full online school and a feminine leadership institute that we've been working on for 2 or 3 years already. So hopefully I'm going to make it very easy for you to find me and to find the wisdom that I share.
Yeah. So if something that, or anything, or all of it that Laila has shared today on the podcast has sparked a seed of inspiration within you, then I definitely highly encourage you to follow with that intuition and to reach out, to connect, to send a message, to check out the website, to sign up for the courses, and allow yourself the gift of being able to essentially get back in the driving seat of this incredible body, this incredible vehicle that you have been gifted in this lifetime, to create it from a place of empowerment. This woman is oozing with information that I, personally, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, has elevated me to support me with having these tools in my everyday life, that has helped me to pass them on to other sisters, and to understand other sisters as well, and to learn to also listen to the planet and the animals and all of the teachings of the plants. And so it does weave its way into the fabric of my reality and creates a very empowering fingerprint. So very, 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 very grateful for your wisdom, Mama, for your time, for your presence. The greatest gift you could ever give anybody is your presence and your time. And so thank you so much for being so readily available to chat, to share your wisdom with the Bluebirds. And until next time, is there anything you'd like to share, just closing it out before we really wrap this bad boy up?
I just want to say thank you very much for you to have me here, and for you to do what you do with this podcast. And to everyone that's listening, do not lose hope. We got this, but we have to remember that it's in our hands, it's in our bodies, it's in our hearts. It's time to take responsibility. And by taking responsibility over your own body, over your own life, over your own heart, over your own thoughts, you are doing the biggest service that you can do to the world. So
Mm.
whether you're a man or a woman, whether you feel that you're ready to be a leader or not, just remember that the power is yours and is in your hands. And any narrative that makes you believe that you don't have power, it's a narrative that I encourage you to challenge.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. So many takeaway juices, things to receive and to marinate and to integrate into our consciousness. So thank you once again. So grateful for you, beautiful, beautiful queen coming in hot from Bali, and from myself here in Los Angeles at my dining room table. Thank you for tuning in. If you are watching on YouTube, then I encourage you to write in the description or in the comments nuggets of wisdom that you have really received from this, something that you've really loved or something that you've really appreciated. Love to feel you chiming in. If you are listening on Audible and you feel called that you would like to share this information, I would encourage you to share it on your Instagram stories and tag both Laila and myself so that we can also repost on our stories so that we can continue this incredible network where we can reach so many more people when we do it together, recognizing it's not about who this information is coming from. It's just about that this information is getting out there to empower the people and to recognize the power that lies within us and these incredible quantum computers, these bodies that we have been gifted in this lifetime. So I definitely encourage you to share. And also another reminder that I have launched the Patreon for the Deja Blue podcast, which you can access all exclusive content, guided meditations, opportunities to ask Q&A for my guests on the podcast, as well as an online community of like-minded individuals. Also videos that are not shared on any other platform, but behind the Patreon wall. And it's also an opportunity for you to support Deja Blue podcast to continue to thrive, to continue to up-level in equipment, and to continue to get extraordinary guests on here so that I can continue to share free content with the masses. So it's a win-win-win scenario. That's on the other side of the Patreon wall. It is $33 a month if you feel called to support, and also create a win-win of receiving exponential value that shall nourish you from the inside out. So with that being said, thank you. So grateful. Thank you to all the bluebirds for listening. Until next time, may you feel seen and loved and held and supported and juiced up and ready to go and placing the power back in your hands because it's always been there. Sending you so much love and so much appreciation. And so it is.